Hey everyone, Eric Hurst here. It's Monday, November 23rd, 2020, and I'm back home and settling in for the holidays. And that brings us to the topic of this training cafe is training through the holidays, or maybe taking some time off during the holidays. We'll talk about the pros and cons of both approaches and how maybe you can do both, train some, make some progress, get in shape, but also not kind of sink the boat or be self-destructive in terms of food and beverage. And so, yeah, there's a lot to unwind there and talk about. So that's the main topic today. And after that, I'll get to some of your questions. I see 4 or 5 questions typed in already. You can put them into the comments box here on the YouTube live stream, and I'll get to them a little bit later on in the live stream here. Of course, this is Training Cafe, and so you know what that means. It's time that we commune with coffee. And that is a good cup of coffee there. You know why? Because it's a cup of our new Fizzy Vantage Send Blend. See that? Send Blend coffee. How do you like that? This is a holiday special. Fizzy Vantage is a nutrition company. We make premium grade proteins and performance supplements. Top climbers are using them. Recreational climbers are using Fizzy Vantage. The feedback has been fantastic, and we're really excited to be a part of your performance formula, supporting your training, your climbing, and now we can also support your breakfast or your lunch or your training cafe in terms of this special holiday edition Send Blend coffee. It's a medium roast. It's smooth and balanced, just like your climbing. And it's a real rich cup of coffee. You can order it off our website, fizzyvantage.com. We also have a gift box, which comes with coffee, a mug, and the Send Blend in a nice white gift box. And so maybe there's a climber or a training partner or a friend that you would want to gift some fun Send Blend to for the holidays. So visit fizzyvantage.com. So there's our little commercial for the day. Let's get on to Training Cafe. And before the main topic, a shout out. Every episode I give a shout out to some climber or climbers who have impressed me or done something noteworthy. And I've got 2 this time around. French climber Julia Chanourdie became, I think, the 3rd woman to climb 515B. She did 515A earlier this year, and now she just about a week ago did 515B, or what is that, 9B in the European grade. So that's incredible. Julie's a great climber. I got to see her climb in person. I think it was 2 summers ago in northern Italy at Tetta di Sare. We were there climbing, me and my sons, and Julia was there running laps with her dad belaying. And I think she was running laps on like 8B plus and maybe a 9A. So obviously she's super strong and talented, and she is now one of the 3 women in the world that has done 515B. So that's awesome. The other shout out, Fizzy Vantage climber Jordan Cannon, who I think becomes just the 4th or 5th person to free climb Golden Gate in a day. If you don't know what Golden Gate is, it's, I believe, a 36 pitch free route up El Cap, left of the nose. I believe it was first done by the Huber brothers, but it's since been done in a day, in less than 24 hours by just a handful of climbers that you will recognize. People like Alex Honnold and Tommy Caldwell. And just a couple of weeks ago, Emily Harrington did Golden Gate in a day. And I think she was our shout out a couple of episodes ago. And now Jordan Cannon knocked it off in, I think, about 21 hours. So imagine climbing 36 pitches up to 513B and freeing all of them in 21 hours. Pretty amazing. So congrats to Jordan Cannon on that big time achievement. Okay, so on to the main topic here, which is training through the holidays. Now, depending where you're at in the world, your climbing weather will vary. If you're in a lower latitude location, this might be some good send weather, send climate coming up, December, January. Other parts of the country up in the north, like where I live, it's a little too cold and at times snowy or rainy, to do much outdoor climbing. So it's more of a training season. And then you throw in the holidays. Here in America, we have Thanksgiving this week. Thursday is Thanksgiving. So for many American climbers, the week, it's a travel week. It's a week to be with family. It's a week to give thanks for if you're healthy and strong and have escaped the COVID pandemic. Personally, you have a lot to be thankful for, that's for sure. And I do with regard to my family and my being. And so, and then of course the holidays in late December and New Year's, lots of opportunity to get together with friends and family and eat a lot, maybe drink perhaps too much. Those things can be counterproductive, of course, if you're serious about training and climbing. Now, I'm not someone that says don't do any of that fun stuff because you need to stay in shape. You need to train optimally. You need to eat right all the time. I'm not saying that. In fact, I think if you're doing things right most of the time, it's psychologically and mentally good to have a break from things. And so while I don't advocate eating, fattening foods in high doses year round, on occasion, they won't hurt you. And while I don't recommend drinking alcohol on a daily basis, a little bit won't hurt you every now and then. And so, kind of knowing where you're at, having a plan, if you're a performance climber, kind of when your on season is, when you're going to maybe do trips or climb your best during the season. And so you want to peak for those situations. And again, for many of us, myself included, autumn, October, maybe into November is one of those peak seasons for climbing outdoors and performing at a high level. And then as you enter the holidays, maybe it's time to, dial back your training, perhaps take a week off from serious training, maybe even 2 or 3 weeks off if you have some pain somewhere that needs to resolve and that you need to work through. This is a good time to do that. And to relax a little with friends and family and not stress out about eating the wrong things or drinking too much. I think that's all, pretty healthy. So there's kind of 3 approaches heading into this kind of end of season holiday period. The first approach is just to take a complete break from training, from climbing, from watching your diet. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month where you kind of just take off and, break away from the schedule of going to the gym. Or perhaps if you're in one of the places that's locked down again. I was just heard from a friend in Germany, my friend Hannes, and he's saying that they're basically locked down and everything's closed in Germany until Christmas. So, again, I recognize that with COVID, every country and here in the United States, even on a state to state basis, the rules and the restrictions are a bit different. But again, one approach would be just to take some time off from climbing and watching your diet. And if you take that approach, I'd probably limit it to just a week or 2 at the very most. The exception being if you're injured, then maybe you're taking time off from serious training to resolve an injury and do some rehab. But if you cut off the climbing and just start eating and drinking whatever you want, and you do that for an extended period, it's going to be impactful. You could easily put on 1 pound of body fat per week, maybe more, if you quit training and if you just open up your diet to an anything goes strategy. So you would detrain, you would lose your maximum strength and power. You would lose mitochondria content if you took a month off from climbing, which would dramatically reduce your endurance. And then you might put on weight. So it's kind of, you lose on all fronts if you just take a month off and do nothing and eat whatever you want. So I really don't recommend that approach, except if you do it for a very short period of time, like taking 1 week off, maybe Christmas to New Year's, you take 1 week off. Or maybe, here in the United States, you take this week off, Thanksgiving week, if you're traveling and visiting friends and family and don't have an opportunity to train and climb. Now, the other side or the other end of the spectrum would be, maybe this period we're heading into, into December, maybe that's your prime performance season. If you live in a desert region, Southern California, Las Vegas, or somewhere warm or mild in Europe or elsewhere, perhaps this is your season. And so you're really not thinking about partying and, staying home, but instead traveling and trying to climb your best. And so if that's the case right now here in November, you should be kind of wrapping up your training and trying to put yourself in a position to peak heading into that holiday climbing trip or winter climbing season. So you're kind of, tightening your diet down, trying to train just in ways that are going to help you, not hurt you. And prior to a performance season or prior to a trip, that usually means a taper the last, week or so. So that would be quite the opposite of the person who's taking a week or a few weeks off from training and climbing. And then there's kind of the middle ground, and that's where I'm going to be at. And I think my family is going to be at in terms of climbers that want to stay in shape and do some training the next few weeks, from now through New Year's, let's say, perhaps get outside a day or two here or there if the weather would cooperate, though that's pretty rare in these parts where I live this time of year. But also enjoy the holidays, have a Thanksgiving meal with family, have, attend a Christmas party and drink a little too much perhaps, or a New Year's Eve party. And so, the kind of that middle ground is what I would, I guess, recommend for most people would be try to relax a little bit and enjoy the season and be thankful that we survived this year, all of us, hopefully. And, but at the same time, don't engage in so much counterproductive behavior in terms of just totally going crazy on the food and beverage. It again is pretty easy to put on a few pounds in a short period of time. I often point out to people, it's a lot easier to consume 3,000 calories than it is to burn off 3,000 calories. I mean, you could easily, in a big meal filled with fattening foods, whether it's cheeses or fattening, steak cut or, French fries and cake and cookies and beer and wine. I mean, it's easy in a day to eat 3,000 calories, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 calories if you really go nuts. But it's hard to burn that off. The old rule of thumb is you got to run a mile to burn off 100 calories. So you would need to run a marathon to burn off 2,600 calories. Or climbing, which doesn't burn an extreme amount of calories. If you go to a climbing gym or bouldering gym, you might burn off 400, maybe 500 calories if you're route climbing in an hour. So if you put in a couple of hours, you might burn off 800 calories. But it's a lot easier to eat 800 calories than it is to burn that off. So it is important to enjoy the season, but also not do too much damage in a short period of time. And so I would, I guess, recommend that perhaps you try to do what we will do. And so I know this week, Thursday, Thanksgiving, we're going to have a big meal. So I'm going to try to get here in the next couple of days some quality workouts, some quality training in, and even Thanksgiving morning, if possible, I'm going to, if the weather cooperates, go out for a run in the morning. Kind of if there's a big meal coming later in the day or a party coming in the evening, I think it's even more enjoyable if you do a hard workout or do something physical that day in the morning. Perhaps even fast in the morning and do a run or do some climbing. And other than maybe a protein shake after your workout, don't consume many calories until the big meal that comes in the evening or the party that you're attending. I've done this for years, is trying to couple the idea of knowing there's a big meal or a party coming late in the day. And so being proactive earlier in the day and doing a big workout and kind of earning that meal or earning that party. And I'm sure many of you have done the same thing, because it's a pretty logical, rational way to approach the holidays. And so that's a strategy I will leverage not only this week, but also probably Christmas week and New Year's as well, is to try to earn those big holiday meals, and then not stress out that I overate by 1,000 calories on some day. I mean, I'm one of those people that tends to have a running calorie count in my mind most days. I'm not writing it down, but I'm kind of recording what I consume, and I know kind of what I need to consume calorie wise on a given day, and whether that puts me in a surplus or a deficit. And so, yeah, I do kind of run the numbers, but it's nice every now and then just to even forget counting and enjoy a good Thanksgiving meal. And so I guess that approach of trying to do both, I'm kind of I guess the nature of my personality is to try to be engaged in a lot of activities, meaningful activities, whether it's, family and work and climbing, and trying to do it all. Leading a busy life is how I do it, and probably how many of you do it as well. And so in that same way, trying to have the best of both worlds, getting a workout in, but also being able to enjoy a party or a holiday meal. I think that's a winning combination. And so I don't want to get into any nitty-gritty training details. As we get into winter training season, at least, winter here at the higher latitudes, I'll do some podcasts. And of course, on my Training for Climbing website, there's articles and videos that are being released, weekly, where you can get more very specific training advice. Here on Training Cafe, I tend to be more address topics more generally, kind of giving my philosophy as I just outlined, and then get to the little nitty-gritty details in response to the questions that are coming in. And I see quite a few have come in here in the last 18 minutes. So I guess it's a good time for a sip of coffee and then answer some of those questions. So let's do it right here. I'm going to scroll up, and really psyched to see so many tuned in here on a Monday. And let's see what we got here. Tracy, 16 years old, has ticked off some V5 outdoors and in the gyms, a couple of V6s in recent months. Wants to know if it's appropriate to start doing max hangs and campusing. That's a really tough question for me to answer. As many of you know, I really am a believer in having the exercise prescription matched to the person, just like a physician would match the prescription to who you are and your illness and your conditions and such. And so it sounds like you're a pretty strong young climber, and at age 16, your body is becoming supercharged with testosterone. And so I'm a big fan of doing training, not just climbing for training, but actually doing some additional training. So things like weighted pull-ups and doing core training and doing push muscle, antagonist muscle training to develop a balanced body. If you build that balanced body at age 16 or 17 or 18, you may very well have it for life. And that would be a very good thing for your climbing and just for your life in general. And it's something I've strived to do with my sons, who are now 18 and 20, but through the teenage years were not just climbers, but all around athletes playing other sports and doing a variety of training. And I think you should do a variety of training as well. But specifically the weighted hangs, I would do maybe start dabbling with some 2-arm weighted hangs, where you use say a 20 millimeter hold, grab it, half crimp or open crimp and open hand, and do some weighted hangs, maybe 10 or 12 second weighted hangs, and rest for 3 minutes and do a few of those. and kind of see what kind of weight you can hold for 10 to 12 seconds as a training weight. Of course, you want to warm up extensively. The campus board, of course, takes the strength you're building in your fingers and your pulling muscles and trains power, how to express your strength quickly, which is very important for climbing as well and for hard bouldering. And so the campus board, the kind of the entry-level exercise there would be laddering, doing like a 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 ladder. Just laddering up, and then if you can, safely jumping off and landing on a mat, because the going down is actually a little more stressful and perhaps potentially injurious if you're really in a fatigue state. So learn by laddering up, and then as you gain strength, you can expand to other campusing exercises. So I think, Tracy, you can start to ease in and experiment with that stuff, but avoid going overboard. A common mistake of climbers of any age is they get a new hangboard, or they decide they're going to hangboard or campus train, and they just go all in. Kind of like someone who's not a runner gets a pair of running shoes and then just starts running every day in pretty high volumes, and within a month they have shin splints or plantar fasciitis or tendonitis, and your body takes time to adapt. And so introducing any new exercise, with regard to rigorous training, whether it's hangboard or campus board, if you do too much too soon, you're not going to get the desired results. You're going to get more likely some type of injury out of it. Okay, Brandon, yesterday his foot slipped off the easiest part of the crux, 7B, and so he's going back to send on Wednesday. Yeah, that's a bummer, and we've all been there, right? We've all fallen off, or punted, as some people call it, when you fall after the crux. And you can't let it get in your head. It's part of the game. And so kind of being, even though I'm sure you're frustrated, being a bit lighthearted about it and being confident about it, knowing that you climbed through the crux is great information that should give you high confidence. You go back next time, get a good warm up in, maybe do a practice go on the route where you do it with a few hangs, and inspect the foothold and get the feel of what the move is you fell off of. Because sometimes when something unexpected happens, you fall where you didn't expect to. It's because maybe you botched the sequence, but even if you hit the holds right, maybe you didn't know the feel of the move. So maybe go back to that route, climb it with a few hangs, and relearn or become aware of the feel of the foot move and the body position where you accidentally fell, then rest a bit and send the route. And I think that will go down easily, and you'll have a 7B ticked off. So good luck with that. Okay. Question about core and ab training. Yeah, in my books, I do talk about sometimes spreading out your training just so your workouts don't get too long. Everybody's schedule is different. And sometimes you try to pack so much into a climbing workout that it turns into 4 or 5 hours. And maybe if you're a pro climber, you have that kind of time. Although I, in that case, would recommend breaking it into 2 separate workouts, a morning and an evening workout that have their own focus. But in any case, core training, you can do it at the end of your climbing workout. That would make good sense because core is so engaging, for your core muscles. But core is a group that's working every day, just being up, walking around, just lifting things, lifting boxes, doing any type of rigorous labor, going for a run. Your core is getting a workout. So it's like every day is kind of, every day you get out of bed is a core workout day, you might say. Though, specific exercises like, planking or front levers, and there's a wide range of core that a climber can engage in, is much more rigorous. So, I'm not saying it's wrong to do core as part of your climbing day. You might do it at the end of your climbing workout, which is what I do sometimes. If I'm doing a more of an endurance-oriented climbing session, I will do some of my endurance-oriented core at the end of it. Like I do 5-minute plank sequences and things like that. And on my strength training day, which, today I'm going to do a strength workout. I'm going to do a little bit of hangboarding and a little bit of campus boarding. I would do some strength-oriented core towards the end of the workout. For me, that would be, front lever, some, windshield wipers, core exercises that last only 5 to say 20 seconds that are more strength-oriented. So you could break up your core and have it, kind of matching the theme or the energy system focus of your climbing workout of the day. But again, if your workouts are too long, you could do core, a couple days a week on rest days, along with, say, antagonist muscle training. And of course, I recommend doing a little bit of flexibility work each and every day. That's something you can do 7 days a week, and it can be beneficial. Okay, let's see here. Campus board, I can reach up to 1.5, but can't pull through. I can only do 1.34, even though I can lock off on the pegboard. Yeah, any tips? Okay, so there's a number of things there. I mean, campus boarding is a skill. It involves, there's very, specific motor skills and learning the feel. It's pretty easy to do the pulling part, as you mentioned, going 1 to 4, but then locking it off and pressing it down and reaching to the next run. The movement's a little more complex. And so it's a skill you have to learn, thinking about the arm that's pulling down towards the lock off, actually start, driving, developing end range strength is important, but also learning how your body has to turn, kind of like the little body English that is involved in campusing. And so it is kind of complex. And, you could do, if you have access to a pull down machine, like a lat pull down machine that you could pull with one arm, you could do some end range strength where you just pull the cable, the handle from here down, and then actually continue to press down by your side, like you're shifting from a pull into a mantle, and do some end range strength training, both sides, to over time develop that end range strength. When you're pulling up, when you're working pull-ups or campusing, you're using momentum, and of course, the momentum ceases when you stop, and you need to then be able to express strength, to kind of change the direction from a pull to a push. And again, so that's where some of the strength and the motor learning comes into play. So I think you have to view your problem as both a technique issue that you just need to spend more time in the board and learn some of the nuance and feel of the movements, but also develop more end range strength. And there's some campus board strategies for doing that as well, but it's kind of beyond the scope of me explaining here, especially without having access to a campus board. So hopefully that helped you out a little bit. Okay, favorite crag snacks. Well, bananas, number one. I take a banana to the crag pretty much every day I go out. A protein bar. I tend to save the protein bar for the very end of my day. So when I finish my last climb of the day, I consume the protein bar immediately as I'm hiking out, as I'm heading to the vehicle. Often, for many of us, there will be an hour, maybe more, until, from your climbing day ending till you get a meal. And to optimize recovery, to get the process started, to get, a protein bar and maybe 300 calories that is in a typical protein bar into your body immediately upon, finishing the day of climbing, or finishing your workout for that matter. If you're going to a climbing gym for 3 or 4 hours, you wouldn't want to wait 2 hours to eat your protein meal. And you might not have what it takes to mix up a protein shake on the spot. So that's where a protein bar can really come in handy. If I'm putting in a long day at the crag, in addition to my banana and my protein bar, typically a bagel sandwich. A family favorite, we've been doing it for years, is just a plain bagel with some peanut butter and some jelly. So just a standard PB&J, but in a bagel. And I think it runs maybe 450 calories. So it's a pretty good feeding. It's kind of a lunch type thing. So if I'm going to the crag, arriving, say, at 9 a.m., I might eat the banana mid-morning. I typically have that bagel sandwich early afternoon. I try to save it as a reward after I send like my goal route of the day. You know, if I have something lined up to red point during the midday or early afternoon hours, I don't like to eat before that. Obviously, you don't want food in your stomach. That would be counterproductive, actually. But it would be a nice, enjoyable meal to eat the PB&J after sending the route. And so many days I'll end up eating it at 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And then again, the protein bar as I'm hiking out at the end of the day. So again, that's not a huge amount of calories, but climbers don't burn a huge amount of calories. We're not ultra marathon runners. We're not big wall climbers. I'm talking about if you're a boulder or a sport climber or a cragger, someone who goes to a trad crag and does a few pitches in a day. You're not burning massive calories unless there's a difficult approach. And so you don't need to eat 4,000 calories a day like a big wall climber or a mountaineer or a marathoner might run. But you probably are eating, depending on your body size and your age and your level of conditioning, you might be consuming 2,500 to maybe 3,000 or 3,500 at the most. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I tend to have that calorie counter running in my head most days just to keep me on track. Okay. Yeah, opinion on grade. I mean, I wrote a book many years ago called How to Climb 512. And, at the time, some people cynically said, oh, you make too big of a deal about grade. And I'm the first to admit that, climbing is about experience, not about grade. That being said, it's human nature to want to achieve things and push ourselves to a new level. Most climbers I run into, regardless of age or gender or climbing preference, like to do something near their limit. That process of achieving and doing something hard is pleasurable and fulfilling. It's one of the most enjoyable things in my life is going through that. I can go climbing and I could go to the Schwunggunks, which is a trad area I grew up climbing at 40 years ago, and climb 5-8 trad pitches all day long and have a blast because it's fun, it's beautiful, it's classic, it's climbing. So I'm a climber first, but I also really enjoy a lot going to a crag in Wyoming or the Red River Gorge in Kentucky and pushing myself and overcoming my weaknesses, whatever they may be, or my fears, or the things that hold us back, to overcome them and feel like you achieved something difficult and you made yourself better in some way is really gratifying. And so, grade is nice to kind of give you a target, a goal, but it is just a number. That is for sure. And so I don't think a 5:15 climber is any more of a worthwhile human being than a 5:10 climber. The 5:15 climber is a great athlete and a great climber, but so may be the 5:10 climber for who they are and where they're at in their life. And so it's a very scalable experience, which is really neat about climbing. Whatever your limit is, when you climb it, for me, my limit is, 513C right now, I guess. And me doing a route at 513C demands I perform and persevere through the pain that Adam Ondra has to persevere and perform through on 515D. It's a very similar experience, even though the grades are massively different. And your grade might be different from either of those as well. But yet when you push your limit, sharing a similar experience as I am and as the other viewers are and as Adamandra is when he is pushing his limit. And that's a really cool thing about climbing. Okay, Henrik says hi. Hey, back to you. Gyms are closing down in my area. Any tips for keeping hangboard routines varied and interesting? Yeah, it is. For some folks, they're in COVID lockdown part due. And sadly, it's kind of like deja vu because we pretty much all went through this this past spring. And, hangboard is a great tool, but it's very limiting. You need to be creative. And again, if you think in terms of energy systems, you can do the max hangs for a workout. You could do repeaters, which is more, if they're difficult repeaters where you train a minute, rest a minute, that's a good strength endurance exercise. It works both the anaerobic lactic and the aerobic energy system. And if you don't have access to a climbing wall at all, once a week you could put a chair or a stool underneath your hangboard and do moving hangs where you just kind of keep moving your hands around the hangboard and shaking out and, keeping your grip working and your arms moving and your body twisting, albeit in a very boring way. But if you do those moving hangs for 10, 15, 20 minutes, put on a TV show or some good music and kind of just, put in the time, that can actually be, a bit of a more of an aerobic, energy system workout for, to keep your mitochondria capacity up while you're not able to go to a gym or the crags. So thinking about your hangboard training, if you can do, 1 or 2 sessions for each energy system per week, you need to take some days off that you're not on the hangboard. It's good to load your fingers daily, but not maximally daily. That is where injury results. And then, of course, do rotator cuff training and core training and, maybe do some running if you're able to go outside, a variety of things to stay in shape. And hopefully a lockdown, I think in Germany, it's like a 6-week lockdown. You will survive and come out of it in pretty good shape if you do all of those things. Okay, in your book, you advocate 4-3-2-1 week protocol. Why not more? This is a complex question. We're talking about periodization schemes, and this is a 4-week of more stamina, aerobic type training, climbing a lot, high volume climbing, 3 weeks of maximum strength and power focused training, more alactic energy system, and then 2 weeks of power endurance, strength endurance. That's the really pumpy, more lactic system oriented training. And then 1 week of taper or 1 week of rest, and then you repeat the cycle, or you go on a trip and you go into performance. And this is a pretty good program if somebody has a 10-week training block. Though many people, their climbing season is year round. They're performing year round. And so that's not a great protocol. And doing more of what I've outlined in my Training for Climbing book, the DUP, the Daily Undulating Periodization Scheme, where over the course of 1 week, 7 days, you hit each energy system at least once, maybe twice, and therefore keep all 3 energy systems at a pretty high level. Maybe not advance any individual energy system to another level, but you keep them all up. And so if you're, say, climbing every weekend or getting outside 2 days a week, you would train indoors 2 or 3 days per week and do 1 session for each energy system, and therefore stay in a pretty good place in terms of performance long term. That being said, at some point, I think all climbers, one energy system gets ahead or behind the others. To really improve as a climber year over year, I'm a big believer that you need to take your maximum strength to the next level, because that is kind of a restrictor on how much, power endurance and strength endurance you can build underneath. So every year, the pro climbers, people like Megos and climbers like my sons, hopefully like you, are able to take their strength to the next level in terms of finger force and pulling strength. You get to be my age, maybe you're just trying to maintain and not lose, not let sarcopenia win the day, and trying to preserve strength season over season. And maybe eke out small gains. It's still possible, but it becomes more difficult with age. And so I think that does require some dedicated blocks. And so if you have sometime this winter, a month where you're going to be training indoors, maybe it's during the lockdown where you can make some strides and do 2 weighted hang workouts per week on your hangboard. Couple that with some campus training and increase your max strength and power to the next level. So again, scheduling your workouts is the most complex thing a coach has to do, because you have to integrate the person's life and all other life activities and know what the goals are, know what their training history is, know what their, strengths and weaknesses are, and maybe injury concerns are, and then be able to, create a workout that is, a structure to follow and implement over days and weeks and months. And that's something I obviously can't do for any individual, unless you came here to my house and trained with me for a few days or a week, and I could test you and work and talk to you, and then I could put together a good program for you. But otherwise, you need to be a self-coach or engage a professional coach, which I encourage you to do if you have available. Okay, how are we doing here time-wise? Okay, 41 minutes in. Let's try to blast through a few more questions here and then wrap things up. Okay, wants to improve open crimp. So he's doing one-handed hanging. That's more of an advanced strategy for an advanced climber, rather than training 2 hands simultaneously, training one with an assistance on a sling, or ideally a pulley system that you can measure how much weight is being removed from your sustaining grip, and doing max hangs like that is a great way to train your finger strength. But then you mentioned repeaters is, as I mentioned a little while ago, that's more of a strength endurance or even aerobic endurance exercise, depending how much resistance you're using. So that's a different exercise, a different goal, a different stimulus than those max hangs. And so should be done as a separate session. You can do them both in the same week, even on back-to-back days if you're doing DUP, periodization. But I'm a big believer that max strength workouts should be max strength workouts, and that you shouldn't fall into the trap that many climbers do, myself included, in the distant past, of trying to train everything in a session. If you do that, it may be effective for a lesser trained climber, because if you're not well trained, then any stimulus you do tends to provide some results that you notice. You feel stronger, you get stronger, your body comp improves. But if you're more of a highly trained athlete, you need a very specific workout, a very targeted workout to make further gains. And just throwing a bunch of crap at the wall, hoping something sticks, trying that shotgun approach to training doesn't get it done and might get you injured, because it's just too much stimulus, too much stress and strain on connective tissues. And that can have an unhappy and undesirable ending. So I would do your max strength, your one-arm hangs one day, and then maybe the next day do your repeaters to train the different energy system, and then take the third day off. And in that scenario, you could, do strength, repeaters, day off, then strength, repeaters, day off. Actually, maybe 2 days off after that, to give your body some extra catch-up time. And then if you're doing climbing mixed in there, then it becomes, again, very complex to program appropriately, and really depends on who you are, and genetics come into play, and diet plays a role. If you have a higher protein diet, a cleaner diet, I believe you do recover more quickly. good dietary habits really can make an athlete or break an athlete. And so that's something that I'm always trying to educate people on, and also provide the tools in terms of what I do with my company, PhysiVantage. Okay. Eric's having recovered from COVID. Wow. Okay. So someone here that had to personally deal with COVID. Sorry to hear that. Bought his Endurex, giving it a try. Okay, Endurex is a PhysiVantage supplement. It is a beetroot extract supplement, but there's a lot more to it. It also has citrulline malate and betaine, so it's far more advanced and I believe effective than standard beetroot supplements or just eating beets. If you ate a beet, you'd have to eat 3 or 4 beets to get the amount of the nitrates that are in a beetroot extract supplement, at least a good one, or Endurex, which is has also citrulline malate, and all of these ingredients, the beetroot extract, the citrulline malate, the betaine in the Endurex, support the oxidative energy system. And the research has shown athletes do get more power endurance, recover in intermittent sprint activities, sprint sports, where you go off and on and off and on, and that's what climbing is. You get more recovery because the oxidative system drives all recovery. And the Endurex works through a few different pathways to enhance mitochondria function. It's, of course, the nitrates, when they react inside the body, help make nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator that improves blood flow. Perhaps improves endothelial function, gets the oxygen out of the blood into the mitochondria more readily. And so it's something that most climbers who use Endurex, I'm proud to say, really do feel a difference, especially on route climbing. So it's something you consume pre-workout, pre-climb, and it has an effect, an arc of about 4 hours. So the peak effect is about 2 hours after you've consumed it. And he's asking, could it benefit my lung recovery? Well, I don't think there's anything really active with regard to the beetroot extract or the Endurex with regard to what's going on in the lungs. It's more peripheral changes in terms of the vasodilation occurring in your forearms and the mitochondria function in your working climbing muscles. I'm not a doctor, and I don't really know what effects it would have on your lung capacity. And you should follow whatever instructions the doctor has given you with regard to recovering from COVID. I would think that just doing activities that cause you to breathe heavily, I would think, assuming you are cured, let's say, of the COVID, that you're through the worst of it, I would think that exercising, aerobic exercise, things that cause you to breathe heavily, might be the best thing for your lung recovery. I don't know that a supplement is going to be a difference maker. But once you're back on the rock, I think you will find the Endurex helps out. Dealing with wrist pain seems to improve with reverse wrist curls. Yeah, I'm not a medical doctor. I've been around climbing for 44 years, though, and I've seen a lot of injuries. I've felt a lot of injuries myself. And, the wrist is a really complex joint, and there can be a lot of issues going on in a wrist. I've had some pain come and go over the years, but nothing significant. If you feel that the wrist curls help, by strengthening the extensor muscles, being able to stabilize your wrist when you're climbing, allows you to express finger force more effectively and might improve your condition. If you think it is, then I would continue doing them, maybe 3 days per week. And again, don't focus on doing like the heaviest weight you can, but think about doing those reverse wrist curls for reps and focus on the range of motion from neutral to full extension. Focus on that range of motion. Select a weight that allows you to do maybe 20 repetitions. do a couple of sets of those. If you want to go heavier, what I would recommend is doing a third set with a heavier dumbbell that you just hold in the extended position. Hold it for 30 seconds in the extended position, and then do a slow, maybe 15 to 30 second lower, so that there's actually 60 seconds total time under tension. That is very therapeutic for the tendons. That type of slow eccentric or isometric contraction allows the collagen to slide and will break some cross links and actually make the tendon more compliant, and has been shown to be helpful in cases of tendinopathy. Now, I don't think you have tendinopathy, at least your wrist, that doesn't seem to be what's going on there, but I'm saying it's a healthful thing to do that type of loading every so often, especially for folks that have any sense of pain in their lateral elbow area. Eric Jerome, a PhysiVantage athlete and a super strong boulderer. How might training program be? Yeah, yeah, again, Eric, those are very personalized things. Designing your program for next season, needs to have in mind, injury history, which I know you've had a few bouts of, and you had a great climbing season, as far as I know, your best climbing season with a lot of hard sends. And so if you're healthy, doing what you can to take your climbing to the next level would be, I would like to see, and as a young climber, you'd be able to take your strength metrics to the next level. How many one-arm pull-ups you can do. For an elite level climber, most climbers can't do any one-arms, but most elites can do multiple one-arms. Well, how many can you do? That is one metric. What your maximum is on the campus board in terms of power is a metric. What you can do in terms of finger force. I know you do some testing, perhaps with Tyler, of finger force, and or even just at home, you can do some finger force testing. If it's well controlled, you can get some meaningful data out of that, and then design a program to help take all those metrics to the next level, maybe through a 1 or 2 month training block this winter. You can take those metrics to the next level. Of course, priority one for any elite climber who's had some injury history is to do no harm and to not do anything that tempts re-injury. And so that can happen by, when you are trying to train for that next level, you introduce a new exercise, you try to, increase your volume too fast, or just sometimes elite climbers do stupid things, party tricks, doing a one-arm pull-up for somebody when they're cold at a party and not warming up properly. Those party tricks can get you injured and put you under the knife. I've seen it happen. And so being smart, you're kind of a savvy veteran climber at this point. And I think, trying to find ways that you can take those strength and power metrics to the next level, especially as a boulderer, as you are, I think is a step in the right direction. I'm not sure I fully understand what you're getting at, and maybe that's a personal conversation we can have sometime, because I do think in all of these situations that relate to program design, it has to be extremely personalized, as I intimate over and over. Okay. Yeah, right. Hugh Lofner, there's a veteran climber, if for sure, of my generation, and a badass climber and hard training climber as well, and a doctor. So he checks all the boxes, gets my respect big time, and probably not much downtime for that guy as well. Yeah, had a good trip to the Red. Sent one project that I was psyched about, did not send another project despite effort that I wasn't too psyched about, but that's what keeps us coming back, right, friends? Yeah, got you there. Yeah, talking about calories and food is a challenging topic. And I've gotten myself in trouble with some people over the years because they misinterpret what I'm saying. I am never an advocate of trying to starve your way to the next grade. And a lot of climbers have tried to do that over the years. And in the short term, it might work because you feel your strength to weight ratio go up, but that lasts for a couple of weeks. And then you usually plateau, descend in strength and ability, and often end up injured. And it's just no way to live a life and be an athlete. So tightening down your nutritional surveillance heading into performance season, and then loosening your nutritional surveillance during your off season, and not stressing out so much about the calories. I do think you have to keep your eye on the ball, though. Climbing is a strength to weight ratio sport. And so any coach or nutritionist or climber who says you can eat anything you want and climb hard is basically lying to you, because, you know, this is not a sport where you can eat anything you want. It's just not. It's a strength to weight ratio sport. It's strength, it's weight, it's a ratio. They both come into play. We want to try to get stronger season over season, but not get heavier season over season. And most of the pro climbers, once they find their fighting weight, you know, for Adam Ondra, it might be 160 pounds. For Alex Megos, it might be 140 pounds. And those are just rough numbers. I don't know exactly what they are. But once they find that fighting weight, they don't move too much. You know, they might go up a few pounds or a kilo during their off season while they're training, and they might drop a few pounds or a kilo or two during their performance season. But there's not a lot of movement there, but they are getting stronger. And hence, if they're getting stronger season over season and their weight is staying pretty much in that fighting range, then their strength to weight ratio is going up. And there's a lot more going on. They're becoming better climbers technically and mentally. Their connective tissues are getting stiffer season over season. These well-trained athletes, they're tightening their suspension every season. And you tighten that by making your connective tissues stiffer. Force transmits more quickly. That increases strength to weight ratio and rate of force development. Now, these are elite level adaptations, but that is how elite athletes in any sport, whether it's sprinting, jumping, rock climbing, if it's a power endurance sport, you're getting stronger, you're not gaining weight, and you're getting stiffer. Your suspension's getting stiffer. Those are the things that an elite climber of many years is working on, and diet is part of that. And, you know, keeping your calories in line, still enjoying life, I enjoy my Café and Kuchen as much as any German, and a beer on occasion as much as any German, and a glass of wine on occasion. And so that's part of life, just as knowing how to dial things in, nutrition and training, and climb your best is part of the good life as well. And final word, I think when it comes to nutrition, the one thing that's overlooked by a lot of people and not paid enough attention to is total protein per day. If you're eating a tight diet, rich in fruits and vegetables, and maybe just a few servings of lean meats, or maybe very little meat at all, you need supplemental protein. You're not getting it through your diet. There's excellent research showing especially power athletes need upwards of, and again, this depends on body weight, but I think for climbers, 80 to 120 grams of protein per day. And I know most climbers aren't getting that. And so that requires, since you just can't eat endlessly like a runner can as a climber, that means getting that protein in a way that doesn't bring a lot of extra calories into the diet. And that's where a good whey protein isolate or a pea protein, plant-based protein, can get the trick done. And of course, PhysiVantage has the products to help you do that if you live in North America. Michael says he loves the long streams. Yeah, well, I am happy to do these. I tend to be someone that can talk forever on these things. If you ever run into me at the Crags and talk training, you'll get that in person. So question here. Yes. If you have access to a campus board, your gyms are closed. If you don't have access to a campus board, if you have an overhanging home wall, you can do some campusing just on the holds on your wall. Sit underneath your woody, and grab 2 medium-sized holds or open hand holds or jug holds even. And assuming you're well warmed up, see if you can do a few, campus bouldering moves. Now you can't do the drop down campusing and you can't do all the, things that you could do on a beautiful campus board, but at least you can train power and do that, on your max strength days. If you're doing DUP, then you're doing 1 or 2 max strength days per week where you're doing, say, weighted hangboard or limit bouldering. And that's where I would throw in some campus on the bouldering wall as well. 12 max hangs, if you're doing like 10 to 12 second max hangs with 2 to 3 minutes rest in between, that means over the course of 30 minutes to an hour, you could do 6 to 12 max hangs. Yes, it would be good to vary the grip. I would, if you're going to do 12 hangs, then maybe do 3 of them for that half crimp, 3 as an open crimp or open hand. Maybe do some through different pocket configurations. And then don't forget to train pinch grip, but I don't like doing those hanging. I like doing those with your hands at your side using a pinch block. I think the wider the pinch block, the better. Remember, on pinching, always just grip with the first joint of your thumb because that's what will recruit the proper muscle to develop your thumb strength and your pinch strength. Okay, last question, and then we'll sign off here. Yeah, okay, so he's been doing max strength core for 6 weeks. It's worked out well. He wants to do some core endurance. Core endurance is very, very important, especially if you're a route climber. I suspect that I alluded to my project route that I did not send when I was at the Red recently. And it's a steep endurance route called Silky Smooth. And the crux is the first half of the route up to a not so good shakeout. And then it's 12B climbing to the top. And I red pointed many times through all the hardest climbing to that shakeout and fell on the endurance run to the top. And in watching the video of it, I'm getting sloppy on that finish, on my body positioning, and not connecting my, the crimps with my feet as well as I should be. And hence, the force vectors aren't optimal on the holds. I'm over gripping the holds and I pump out. And so while this is a good example of coming, it'll be easy to come to the conclusion that it's my forearm endurance that is the reason I'm not finishing, red pointing the route. But in reality, I think it could actually be core endurance that is the cause of my forearms pumping out prematurely. So one of my missions is going to be to work on that core endurance. And so some things to do, I'm going to do it very specifically. I'm going to put on a weight belt, a 10 or 15 pound weight belt, and I have a tread wall, do some tread wall climbing where I can climb for the length of time that this route is, and it's a route that you would red point in 4 to 5 minutes. And so I'll do 4 to 5 minute tread wall climbing on similar holds with a weight belt on that demands, I twist and turn and really work my core extensively. Along with that, I like doing weighted planks. I do a 5-minute plank sequence. My son recorded a video for Training for Climbing YouTube channel recently on plank training. There's 2 there. One of them incorporates weight for that as well. And so those types of things where you're engaging your core for a sustained period of time is very important, especially for route climbers. Again, people tend to focus more on those max strength core things, especially the boulderers, like the front levers or the push outs and roll outs, things that you're only working for 10 to maybe 30 seconds. But many routes and some boulders, you're recruiting your core extensively for a much longer period of time. And so doing some core endurance is a very important thing to do. Okay, one last question, and then I'm going to sign off. I just saw this pop in here. Mario says he's my age, which is 50-something. Only started climbing 6 years ago, and my strength keeps going up. Yeah, that is a beautiful thing. And yeah, if you're not highly trained, if you're new to the sport, then absolutely you can, whether you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you can get stronger. But for someone like me or Hugh Loeffner, who chimed in here earlier, someone who's in their 50s and has been climbing for 30, 40 years and training through that time, we are very well-trained athletes. And yes, there will be periods that we go down and up in strength throughout the course of the year. But the peaks, those max strength, peak power levels are really hard, for a well-trained athlete of decades to take out, to take up to a higher level in your 50s, because you've already kind of realized a genetic limit of sorts. Never say never. There are exceptions to the rule. But your case of somebody in their 50s or 40s or 60s that gets into climbing later in life, hasn't done specific training for decades, absolutely, you can continue to get stronger. And that's I'm glad you put this question in, because again, a lot of people misinterpret what I'm saying on various topics, whether it's nutrition or training. And so I don't want to say you can't get stronger in your 50s. That's not right. But for a highly trained athlete of many decades to reach a new level of strength or power in their 50s is really hard to do. For somebody getting into training, getting into climbing in middle ages, those rules don't apply. You can achieve new levels of strength and power and endurance. You can train them all up, and you've only been climbing 6 years. You can become better technically and mentally. So you got all those things working for you. I would propose that if you stay uninjured and stay motivated, you have a lot of climbing progress to make in the coming years. And so that's a beautiful thing for you. Okay, well, that does it. I've talked over 1 hour. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Training Cafe. One more time, friends, let's commune over coffee, because what is better than training, climbing, and coffee? I would propose nothing, especially when your coffee is Ascent blend. So there you have it. Signing off, Eric Hurst. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, be safe, be strong.